Welcome back to the Book Barn. I'm Lanie.
And I'm Tracy.
Lasha is in Texas right now, but she will be joining us in just a bit. Today we're diving into All the Blood We Share by Camilla Bruce. It's a chilling novel based on the infamous Bloody Benders.
The Benders were a family of serial killers.
I was immediately drawn into this book because Bender Mound is just right up the highway from me.
And though the book is fiction, it's rooted in Southeast Kansas history.
Absolutely. We had such a fun book club meeting last night. We went to the Cherryvale Museum. They have such a nice collection.
I enjoyed the visit to the Cherryvale Museum. I've never gotten a chance to go in there, so that was my first visit, and I was impressed with the artifacts that they had on the Benders, as well as a lot of other artifacts about Southeast Kansas.
Right, and they actually had the hammers that the Benders used.
I found that to be a bit creepy. But
a little, yeah. They used to conk their victims on the head. Some cool pictures from out on Bender Mound.
As well as other selections of books that you can read about the Benders, I noticed.
Yes. Carol Staten, Rita Mendoza, they were both there to share a lot of great information.
Both very knowledgeable. I enjoyed that.
And the food was fun. Your butcher board was amazing.
Well, thank you. We have some really creative members in our book club. The food was great.
And it was our second-year anniversary.
Yay!
Happy anniversary to the Next Chapter Book Club. We are so excited to welcome a very special guest, Andy Taylor, who's bringing news and history to the people of Cherryvale and all of Montgomery County. So, Andy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was an honor.
Let's start with some book talk. Andy, tell us what books are currently on your nightstand.
Mark Twain by Ron Chernow, who also wrote the biographies of Alexander Hamilton and Ulysses Grant. I mean, these are huge 1,000-page books. Fascinating about Mark Twain. He is a writer, Mark Chernow's a writer who, when you open up the book and then by page 2, you're gripped into it. Want to know more about this guy on the Missouri River and on the ship boats that he piloted and the experiences that he had, and a writer and a philosopher and a humorist and a kind of a statesman as well. And you're just gripped in that in the first 2 pages. So that's my first book. Also, I'm reading a book called From Reservation to Washington, The Life of Charles Curtis, who was one of the great untold characters of Kansas history. He was the vice president of the United States during the Hoover administration and came from Council Grove. He, ironically, people don't know much about vice presidents in our history, but he was our first Native American vice president. He was 1/4 Kaw. Fascinating background in his family history, because his father fought with Quantrill on the raids in Lawrence. And father, they think, ran off and died. Mother died at a very early age, so he was orphaned and sent with his grandparents to live on the reservation in Council Grove. Just this guy started with absolutely nothing. Eventually became the number 2 man in the country, and was a U.S. senator from Kansas for many years too. So I'm reading about that. Written by a lady named Debra Goodrich, who's a good friend of mine. So those are the 2 books I have right now. Just sitting there. I got several other books waiting to be read in my bookshelf. But for now, that's what I got.
So I was going to ask you what your favorite genre is, but I'm guessing nonfiction.
Nonfiction historical, you betcha.
Okay.
You betcha. It's hard for me to read fiction. My wife is an avid historical fiction audiobook listener. She listens to it constantly, and she's always saying, "You write a fiction historical novel." I'm like, no, that's not me. I just can't do that. And there's a reason why. It's because I'm a trained journalist, and it's the instinct to go report, investigate, dig, go down those rabbit holes. That's kind of the thrill of it. And just to merely write at your keyboard a story that flows out of your brain doesn't appeal to me. Let me say this, Lanie, how nerdy I am. I'm at home, and men my age play golf, they four-wheel, they whatever they do. I research. That's my decompression time. And I get the laptop out at the kitchen table at 10 o'clock at night and we'll research till 2 or 3 in the morning.
I kind of love that, though. That's cool.
That's nerdy. I mean, that's a pure nerd right there. And I find so many different things that I've written about because of those experiences of just trying to find that one nugget and it takes me down a different trail. And that's what's fascinating to me. That's kind of the thrill of the hunt.
Never too old to learn something new.
Absolutely. I've learned more about history in the past 10 to 20 years than I did in school and college. And I thought I was a good history kid. So you can also guess if there's any television viewing I do, it's going to be documentaries, usually about World War II, or something on PBS or something that nobody else my age watches. So that's what I do. Pure nerd, 100%.
I love it. And what are some of the best books you've read, Andy?
So I have heroes in writing and in authorship. The most famous historical author of our time is a man named David McCullough, who died just a couple of years ago. And I took on a mission after he died, as my memorial to him, to read the books that I had not read during his life, of which there's many books. But so in the past several years and kind of post-pandemic, I've read, Truman, which is the biography of Harry Truman. Fascinating. We need to get old Harry Truman back right now, I tell you. He would make things better. The Pioneers, which is about the first movement of Americans outside the 13 colonies into the Ohio River Valley and having no idea what was there, and at the same time declaring the abolishment of slavery at a time when slavery was still needed in America to continue our economy. And they said, nope, we're going to go past these 13 colonies and create these states of Ohio and Michigan and Wisconsin and have no slavery. That led to further schisms in the Congress that basically led to the Civil War. But this was like 1790 to 1795. Fascinating book that David McCullough wrote. The Wright brothers biography, another fascinating book about these bicycle shop owners in Dayton, Ohio, who had this idea of building an airplane and had no idea what to do. And the trials and the struggles of trying to get this dumb airplane built and to fly. And McCullough is great. This is why I love reading his stuff. He's about the human experience. It's about the challenges and the burdens and the failures of these men, whether it be Harry Truman or the Wright brothers or the first settlers that left the 13 colonies or Teddy Roosevelt, fascinating character that he's written about. Just he finds these stories of their failings. Not that he's accentuating it, but he takes it and says these guys were incredible men because they failed and they got back on their feet and tried to fight again. So yeah, that's why I like David McCullough. So I've been reading a lot of his books lately. Got a whole collection. That's kind of my heirloom to my child. It's my David McCullough collection.
That is amazing.
Also, Stephen Ambrose is another famous historical author. Done a considerable amount of research on World War II, specifically D-Day. His first book about D-Day led to the movie Saving Private Ryan. It also led to the HBO series Band of Brothers, which I loved.
It's excellent.
And it created a whole series of vacation tours in Europe. If you can afford it and want to go on a World War II battlefield tour, it's through the Stephen Ambrose Society. He's now deceased, and just a great writer. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Lasha is in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to be joining us on the phone, so I'm going to get her.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you, yes.
We do have Tracy and Andy in the barn.
Hi, Lasha.
Hello. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Andy.
Hello.
So how is everyone tonight?
Excellent.
Good.
Good as can be expected, I guess.
Good.
So we're going to start off talking about our book. Would you like to read the synopsis for us, Lasha?
Sure, I can do that. The novel, All the Blood We Share, is a dark reimagining of the real-life Bloody Benders, a family of serial killers who left their mark on the Old West. On the Kansas prairie, whispers stir of missing travelers and strange happenings at the Bender Inn. To the townspeople of Cherryvale, the Benders seem almost respectable. Kate, the gifted medium, offering messages from the other side. Her mother, mixing cures for their aches and troubles. But beneath this veneer lies their true business, preying on vulnerable travelers. As the bodies and secrets pile up, even Kate's supposed visions can't protect them forever. The family must perfect their deadly ways or risk being destroyed by the very darkness they've unleashed.
Wow. So Andy, did you like this book?
Here's where I'll start off by saying it's hard for me as a journalist to read a fiction novel and take it seriously. What I pulled and took out from the book were the things that were historically true. And what that synopsis does indicate, the thing that I think is the great takeaway, is that this family, we think it's a family, that has not still been historically proven to be true yet, but these 4 people did come to southeast Kansas and had this grocery inn thing, kind of a modern day convenience store, basically, out in the middle of nowhere, kind of the Dollar General of its day, you know. And they used that as the front to lure people in who were hungry, who needed a place to rest. And the thing that was going on, it was something very, very evil. So, yes, that part of that story, that takeaway, I could take that and say, that's true. From that point on, it gets a little dicey.
Yeah.
Camilla Bruce is her name. She's the author, who I believe is from Norway.
She is from Norway.
And her typical genre is very gothic, I won't say hellish or evil.
Dark, probably.
Dark stuff. Yeah. So this is right in her bailiwick. I would say, you know, if you look at some movies of the past, something like the Blair Witch Project would be something that she would love, and that type of thing. That's going back a few decades. But yeah, so I had to read it, you know, always had the mindset like, okay, this is this woman's interpretation and her artistic license coming out. And is it true? And that's where I'll stop and say, I think a lot of the stuff she wrote, I think, and she hoped that it probably was true. Kate Bender was the mastermind behind all these ploys to bring in the tourists, or the travelers, should say. Dysfunctional family, don't really know what in the world's going on with these Ma and Pa, who went by William and Elmira. Yeah, Elmira or Elvira?
I think it was Elvira in the book.
Yeah.
But we didn't even know if that was her real name.
No.
Okay,
no,
I didn't
no.
think so.
And then John Jr., the brother, just very strange.
Right.
The whole thing is just weird. And from a historical perspective, it's weird. From a fictional perspective, it's very odd. That is part of the allure of being drawn into this story. So yeah, from that standpoint, she does a good job of bringing you in and sucking you into this story about what's going on. You know what's going on. Everybody knows the story of the Benders. I mean,
they do if they're from Southeast Kansas.
They do. Or from most, yeah. And from that point on, I mean, there's no surprise other than you just kind of like watching this train wreck happen. Just for my own reading love, it's just not my thing. It's still fascinating to read the story, no matter if it's fiction or nonfiction. And to think this has happened just a few miles from where we're sitting right now.
Right.
I think this happens a lot of times. People tend to make a tragic situation into a kind of comedy. People like to look at the Dalton raid as a funny thing that happened. And it wasn't funny. It was a terrible shootout. 8 people were killed.
Right.
The Bender thing was mass murder.
Yeah.
That's not funny to me. It has no frivolity. It has no laughter to it. And there's people that want to make light of, oh, it's kind of funny that Kate Bender was out there. Ha, ha, ha. No. I mean, if this happened today, which I know is one of the things you want to ask me about, if this mass murder happened in 2025 instead of 1873, how would we respond to it?
Right.
And with all the tragedy that we experience in today's world, which is many, including mass murder, it's just not a funny thing. And I think our minds have become conditioned to that. Our parents and grandparents 50, 60 years ago thought it was a great idea in Cherryvale, Kansas to put up a museum to celebrate this. And when I look back now, I'm thinking that's probably not the best idea because it celebrates something that doesn't need to be celebrated.
Right.
The story needs to be told. I'm not just saying let's ignore it, but to celebrate it in a museum style. And then I know the gentleman that bought the property now where the supposed Bender cabin was is trying to do something out there. I think I just like to say, let's tap the brakes first and kind of talk about it first before we put signs and balloons and funnel cakes out there. It's just not my thing. Anyway, I'm going to get into the weeds here. I give you my thoughts on the book. Hanson, the character who was he worked in some sort of a trading general store thing in Cherryvale. He wanted to be a newspaper man, which that just shocked me because nobody wants to, in that time, nobody in 1872 or wanted to be a newspaper man. They wanted to go into printing. That was where the money was at. And my forefathers who were in the business did not have a dream to say, hey, let's go run a newspaper. They went around printing presses because that's where the money was made. They could make good money. It just so happened they had a newspaper with it. So that kind of made the money flow too. But they were printers first and foremost. It's a ink in the blood thing. We're weird folks in the printing business and newspaper business. So he had a good hunch that something was going on. He befriended Kate and knew that there was this weird vibe going on in that cabin. The family was just plain creepy. So yeah, she used that character to kind of get the commoner, the reader, is represented through Hanson, to go through that door of that cabin. She did a good job with that. That was a good ploy on her part.
You completely read my mind, because my first question here was going to be about Hanson. Did you like him as a character?
Oh, yeah.
Did you identify with him?
I identified that he had a hunch. I don't know if he was attracted by Kate's beauty only, or if the strange things going on behind that door were alluring to him as well, or what. I had to put myself in the shoes of 1873, and I don't know if the mindset of a bachelor young guy in Cherryvale, Kansas, was all about going through that door to find out what's going on. I think they were just busy trying to stay alive. They were usually poor people, mostly poor, working their tails off to find a way to make a living. So yes, I liked him, but I also thought it was a little bit far-fetched to think that he was out there dreaming of being a newsman, and maybe finding this story of the Benders would be his way to success. That's not how it works. That's not how it works at all.
So, Andy, how about you? Did you always want to be in the newspaper business? I mean, I know that's your family.
That's my family's history. Yeah. So I was born into the business, literally. I'm a fifth generation, so it's not like I had much of a choice at an early age. My parents took me to work. So I was in the office of the newspaper business just as a child and grew up in it. And when I look back now and think what I love about it, I love the sounds. At the time, this is 1970s. And this is back when we had typewriters. Mm-hmm. And we had a jingling telephone that just constantly rang. And just some other equipment we had of that era. CompuGraphic was the name of the company, not Apple or Microsoft. CompuGraphic was the name of it. They had unique sounds to their big machines that had no memory except one line that you would type. And just the sounds it made and just the people working. It was just a lot of machinery in motion. And I loved just being in that vibe. It was in me at an early age. And I still do, even though the technology has changed and everything's done on one computer and it's kind of dull in the sense of noise, I still love the experience. So Wednesday is my day in my office that I got to get my pages produced and sent to the press. And I'm by myself in my office in Independence. Noon is my deadline, and it's a hell time because I get to work early, like around 5:30 or 6, and just start pouring the coffee and cranking out pages and getting them sent to the press. It's a kind of an exciting thing for me. Now, everyone else is going to think, this is really dull. I mean, what are you doing here? You just sit there at a computer for 6 hours and stare? Yeah, I do. But I'm producing something on that computer that's like a painting every week. It's something new, and that's what I enjoy about it.
Yeah.
I kind of feel that way about podcasting. Yeah. You know, we spend time editing our episodes, and it's kind of thrilling that you're creating something.
Absolutely.
So I understand that.
So, yeah, to answer your question, yes, it's been in my blood since its birth. When I went to college, I did not think I was going to come back to this part of the world. I wanted to go be a correspondent for a state capital bureau or national D.C., perhaps. I kind of had a political science type mind. And I went to Washington, D.C. for one summer as an intern for a congressman and hated every minute I was there.
Oh.
I mean, I loved going to D.C. and hanging out and seeing all the stuff, but that world is just not me. So I kind of made a decision. I was like, okay, I'll come back to Kansas and maybe work in another newspaper then. But ironically, in November of 1993, I had been working in a newspaper in Paola, Kansas, where my now wife, was working also. And we came home to Montgomery County. My grandmother passed away the week before Thanksgiving. And my dad, jokingly, said, hey, Andy, I hear the paper in Cherryvale's for sale. Want to go take a look at it? I said, yeah, let's go take a look at it.
How lucky are we?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yes,
right.
for sure.
And rest is history. So at age 22, Can't believe I was so young and dumb. Came here with my wife, lived in the house that Lasha and her husband lived in at Moorhead when they moved out.
Oh, yes.
Is that right, Lasha? Was it your sister that lived there?
I lived there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. It's the little Honeycutt farm.
Yes.
And that's where, so we lived there for several years and worked in Cherryvale. And then we slowly combined operations of our whole company. And as all newspapers do, things have to change, of course. And we have one office in Independence, one in Caney, where my parents work. That's just because they live there and they're 80 years old and they want their own place close by. So that's how that all has come to fruition. So yeah, going on 31 years now. And been a lot of kids I've seen go through our schools, a lot of teachers, and a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff. A lot of history.
A lot, yeah. Not the Benders, though. I can say I've never covered a story like the Benders. If I had to go back in time, that would be a pretty cool story to cover. So going back to the book, the title of the novel is All the Blood We Share. Why do you think Camilla Bruce chose that title?
Obviously, I think all the four main characters were complicit in some way, even though the brother, the son, whatever you want to call him, John Jr., what we refer to him in historical accuracy, was part of the whole thing. Ma was part of the whole thing. Grandpa Bender was part of the whole thing. Of course, Kate was right there. They all shared the blood. From a historically proven point, I believe it was the elder Bender father who did the initial bludgeoning of these victims. So he was a part of it. I mean, it wasn't Kate that did the killing. She just brought him in. And then maybe Ma Bender is the one that, when they opened that trap door, would slit the throats, and then they'd go pickpocket their stuff and knock out their gold teeth and all that horrific stuff that happened. They were all in on it, and they all shared that blood on their hands. So I think that title is appropriate, All the Blood We Share. And the fact they also, all the blood, even family blood. We think they were family. We don't know that for a fact from Germany. And so there's something in them that made them share this weirdism. Now, if I remember right, the mother, Elvira, was the one who wasn't too sure that killing people was the right thing to do. And she let Kate take care of all the killing. She had a strange relationship with Kate. Very weird,
yes.
Almost like dysfunctional, like, I don't want nothing to do with you, daughter. But they came out to Kansas because the dad and the brother were here first and weren't succeeding in their business. Killing people was the way they made their money because they robbed people of all their belongings. So
yeah. And do we know that that is true, that the dad and the brother came first? Is that even?
I believe that is true.
Okay.
So they somehow befriended the key figure. This is Rudolf Brockman, who was the neighbor, the German-speaking neighbor. So they had some connection there by language. If I remember reading Fern Wood's book correctly, that was what the deal was. I don't know the timing of how many weeks or months later they came, but they came out here first on this trail, which was like an interstate highway for its day, and settled in this remote spot along the trail between St. Paul and Independence. But Brockman was the key. And Brockman himself is a man that needs a book, because in later years, I mean, first of all, people accused him of being complicit by association.
Right.
Because he was German, because he spoke it, and I think at the time, he may have rented that land to them, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think the Benders bought it. I think that's part of Brockman's property.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
But when the murders were found out, the people in this area, which was just mob violence, took him and tried to hang him, and they hanged him like 3 times. They hoisted him up on a tree with a rope and then let him down to revive, so that he could admit that he killed him, and he wouldn't do it. He would not say, I had nothing to do with this. But Brockman later was accused and convicted of child abuse of his daughter, who he chained inside a barn that he had in the middle of winter without any clothing. Did she die, or do you know the story?
I don't know that story.
Yeah. No, she didn't die. She escaped, or people found out about it, and they discovered it. And then they did really want to kill Brockman again. But he was sentenced to prison in Lansing for about 10 years for his role in the abuse of his daughter.
My goodness.
I found the court record on that and his prison photo and his prison record, which makes interesting stories.
Right, because in the book, at the beginning, they kind of make him out to be a pretty good guy, but then he turns bad after
he does turn bad.
Kate.
Yeah.
When the Benders left, he took over that property, if he hadn't already owned it. Because in 1878 or 9, I can't remember the year, the Kansas City Times came to Cherryvale to do a follow-up on the Benders, what became of them. And the story that I read from the reporter in the Kansas City Times, interviewed Brockman, took him out to the side, and there was nothing left. You couldn't even see that there was a cabin there. It was just a field. And Brockman mentioned that everybody had come and taken away all the stones for souvenir purposes, all the wood from the building. It was gone in a matter of weeks, basically. But Brockman also made it known he didn't want to see anything left of the Benders. He just wanted to make sure that was just buried and gone.
Yeah.
Remember that name. Remember that. Rudolph Brockman.
Brockman.
He's buried over here in the cemetery south of Dennis. I can't remember the name of it.
Pleasant View, maybe, something.
Yeah, but he's buried there.
So this time, in Kansas history, law enforcement was scarce. And we have this family who's committing these horrible crimes and murders. Do you think that something like that could happen still today?
Possibly. I haven't thought of it in those terms. Could it happen today? Yes, mass murder can happen in a much different level, as we all know, with just the rate of gun violence. Whether there's this conspiracy to lure people in and trap them and kill them, slaughter them, and then bury them, probably not. There's too many people in the way now.
Right.
We can't go anywhere 100 feet without seeing another human being or a camera or a car.
Yeah.
So people would know. People would obviously know what's going on today in that nature. But the violence is still prevalent. We've not changed our hearts any. We're still bad human beings mostly. So that could happen.
Yeah.
It's been deemed the first serial killing in the West.
Wow.
You read the books, whatever books they are, and you sit there and pause and think, my gosh, these people killed at least a dozen people here that we know of, and then buried them in a very horrific way, including the little girl that was buried alive.
That was heartbreaking.
You have to just kind of pause on that and think, this is an evil.
Right.
And that's where I think we need to still focus. Like, we shouldn't have Bender T-shirts. We shouldn't have signage that, hey, look at Kate Bender at the whatever. This is bad stuff.
Right.
Just very sad story in our history, but it's compelling to listen to and read. I think the legend and the lore of the Benders is what we think did or didn't happen. It's not the actual killings. It's what became of them is the teaser.
Right.
And that's where it gets really, it gets lost into a lot of different stories. And, yeah.
Lanie, in the book, Kate finds employment at a hotel in Cherryvale.
Right. I actually talked to Jim, I can't think of his last name.
Hogben.
Hogben. Okay.
At the Leather Rock.
Yes. I was just on the phone with him the other day, and I was asking him about it, and he didn't think that she worked at I know it wasn't the Leather Rock because it wasn't built yet, but he didn't think she had worked in Cherryvale. But the ladies at the museum said the opposite.
Yeah, I think she did.
Yeah.
I think she did work in Cherryvale at somewhere as a hotel keeper or as a waitress in a restaurant,
That's
something
what
like
they
that.
said too.
And that's very close proximity. It's a short horseback ride from Cherryvale to the Bender cabin, which could be done in a matter of minutes, really. I mean, she couldn't work anywhere else. Parsons was still a good 10 to 12 miles away, and there wasn't much there. In fact, the nearest town was Thayer, and then the town of, I think it's called La Roche, which isn't there anymore. It was on this side of Parsons. It was an old fort town. Wild West, woolly, gunfights, all that business, hangings, brothels. That would be closer to the Bender cabin, but Cherryvale was the closest place to work at. And I think she used that intentionally to work in this hotel to try to get people to get to her cabin. I mean, she was always promoting doing these seance and psychic medium things at her house because she had all this stuff set up that they could, kind of like right here with this curtain here, in fact.
Our backdrop.
Yes. The listeners can't see this, but there's a backdrop here with books on it, just like the Bender cabin would have been. So that's why you brought me here today.
No, there are no hammers. Well, actually, there is a hammer.
Hammers in a backdrop.
That's my last name.
That's clever. Yeah, so I don't know where we're going with that.
I don't either.
Was.
So, Andy, can you share some history of the hotels in Cherryvale for us?
Let's go back to 1873. There was just one railroad in Cherryvale at that time. In a few years, became a very big railroad center. But just one, which was the Lawrence Leavenworth in Galveston, which then became the Santa Fe, which is now the SKO. And along the railroad tracks, along Depot Street, ironically named, were several big hotels, basically off the depot platforms. I know the Nichols was one of them, which was at Maine and Neosho, and several others, and they catered to the railroad crowd. Also, the Leather Rock came, I forget what year it was built.
I think 1912.
At the intersection of the Frisco and Santa Fe railroads, and then just a block or two away from it, the post office was the Axtell Hotel, which was this glorious 3-story, all brick, big verandas on the front, beautiful hotel that was known across the country for being a fine hotel. It had a big ballroom for convention dinners and that sort of thing. And it was located where the city has a metal building there now. So it was in close proximity to the railroad depot. So when you got off the railroad car and had to go stay somewhere, the hotels were all within a short walking distance. And they were all located along Depot Street or on Neosho. And there was big trade at the time. When the railroads left and started to subside, the hotels went as well. So, yeah, those days are gone.
It would be something to see Cherryvale in that way.
Booming community at that time.
Very much so. I remember reading one time where the hotels would send out their porters, who were black kids basically. That was their sole job, was to be a porter. A porter was a person who met the railroad trains and would carry the bags for the passengers to the hotels. Like hailing a cab or something. People don't know what a cab is today. Hailing an Uber, I guess. And they would stand along that platform along the depots and say, come to the Nichols, come to the Axtell, come to the Leather Rock, whatever. Because we had a lot of passenger trains then. It wasn't just we had one train a day. We had like as many as 24 trains because we had 3 different railroads that intersected in Cherryvale plus a trolley system. And the railroads that we had were halfway between Kansas City, Tulsa, Wichita, Joplin, or Memphis, St. Louis as well. So Cherryvale was known along the railroad maps of the day, I guess you could say. That was a drop-off spot for a lot of people because they had to change over trains to get from point A to point B to point C. So that's why we had a lot of traffic here. That's what made Cherryvale so well known in the early days. In fact, a little nerdy other tidbit, when I read Charles Lindbergh's biography, which is called The Spirit of St. Louis, he built his airplane in San Diego, California, and he flew it to St. Louis, his home, and then from St. Louis to New York, and then New York to Paris for the famous trip. But this is 1924, I believe. There was no maps for aviators to use. There was nothing. So they had to use the railroad tracks as they looked down out of their airplane to follow and guide them to whatever destination they were going. He got lost. But he knew if he could find his way to Cherryvale, Kansas, he could look down there and say, I can just take northeast direction and follow the train tracks clear to St. Louis, which he did.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. We've already talked a little bit about the land, I think, the Bender land currently. You said you knew who owned it. Didn't they have some stuff going on out there like recently?
Yes, the owner is Bob Miller from Independence, and he has working with the University of Kansas and their anthropology department. Every summer for the past 2 years, they brought a crew to do an excavation at the site. There's several reasons why he's doing this. One is just to clear up any confusion or for historical accuracy where the actual cabin was. He wants to know that. And number 2, to find out if there are more, perhaps, bodies.
Oh, sure.
You have to remember 1873, May, when the bodies were found, they were crudely dug up. They didn't have any scientific instruments. They took shovels, and if they found some little hollow depression, they thought, must be a body here. They started digging and find one. But they didn't do a thorough search. Nor do we know if the Benders used other methods for disposing of their bodies. So he wants to make sure that if there are body remnants or other whole skeletal remains, that they are given proper burial. And where's that at on that property? So KU has brought their anthropology team in to do the digs. It's a very exhaustive thing. You think they go out there and find all kinds of cool stuff, and they don't. They dig and dig and dig, and they sift through all this mud and rock and stuff. They might find a little piece of glass. Scientifically think that might be a piece of glass from that era that could be attached to the bender. I mean, it's just, you don't find a whole lot. They found some nails. They found some remnants of some pottery, but nothing that would like have a smoking gun or anything.
Right.
They're trying to find where the outhouse would have been, because the outhouse was where you disposed of everything, not just your waste, but you threw away your garbage in that hole as well, like glass bottles and anything else. So if you can find the location of that pit, then you can pretty well find how close you are to the house. And there's pictures that we all have seen of the digs that were going on in May of 1873. And you can see the cabin, which has been offset off its foundations to get to the cellar. You see the barn in the background and the outhouse as well. So they know kind of where it was. If they can find that, either the water well or the outhouse, then they can go from there and kind of guesstimate where the cabin would have been.
Sure.
And also the bodies. When you dig into soil has flow. And you put it back and you scan over it with a fancy radar, you can tell where that soil's been disrupted over centuries. So they can kind of tell where there's some anomalies in the soil where there could have been some graves dug. They don't know. Robert Miller also knows that of the 12 or so bodies that were found, not all of them were claimed. And they put them in a mass grave. So there's 12 bodies found on the site, and only about 6 were given back to the families. So the 6 others were never claimed, and they just dumped them somewhere. He kind of knows, in reading where it is. It's by the side of the hill, just to the east of where they think the cabin was. But at some point, they want to go find that mass grave.
Sure. That's crazy. Yeah.
It is crazy.
So are they planning on turning that into like a museum?
He has dreams. He has an idea of what he would like to do. I think the first things first is just to find the historical remnants of what's left out there and go from there. He wants to bring in a museum like Cherryvale had 50 years ago, and that's dedicated to the Bender story, and put it there on that site. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
Well, it's not the same type of history as like the Little House on the Prairie. So
no, it's not.
No.
Close in years, though.
Very much along the same thing. And of course, Laura mentions that in her book, that they came to Kansas and stopped by that, coming or going from Kansas. I think they may be leaving. They came across the Bender cabin and they saw Kate standing there. Don't forget, Little House on the Prairie is also fiction.
Yes.
So we don't know if that actually happened.
Right.
It could have. It's very conceivable. When they left Kansas in 1870, I believe.
I looked that up. And Ingalls I had from 1869 to 1871.
71.
And the Benders were 71 to 72.
So they could have been, put it that way.
Sure.
But that trail was the highway of the day. I've done research on that trail. That's an amazing story. It's not just a little dirt path in the middle of a pasture. It was like 8 or 10 horses wide. It was well trod. They literally created a road base to carry people from Independence, which was a federal town. And when I say federal town, it had a federal land office. If you wanted to go by land at that time in the early statehood, you had to go to the federal land office and declare your claim on that property. It's a big deal to have a federal land office in your town because there's a lot of money transacted there. So Independence had a federal land office, and it connected to St. Paul because of the Indian mission there, the Osage mission, and then from St. Paul to Fort Scott, which was a military installation. So if you felt somewhat secure knowing on this trail you're going from a federal city to a Indian mission sanctuary for anybody, really, the Catholic Church there, and then to Fort Scott, which had a military base, basically what it was. So it was a major highway for travel. And that later extended into Oklahoma, and it veered to the southwest toward Havana, Caney, then down into Osage County today to get to Pawhuska, which was then later the Osage capital. So think of that as an interstate highway that was used by wagons and horses and people.
Going back to whether we know what's true or what's not true with the Benders, do we really know if Bender was their last name?
No, we don't know that. I've read a book that I would highly recommend called Hell Comes to Play by Lee Ralph, who is from Topeka. And he takes a genealogical approach to the Bender story. And he follows exhaustively the name Bender from when he thinks they migrated here to America, and they were probably something else in Germany. And he kind of has even followed the ship manifest of the ships that came here at that time. I think there's like Goering and some other German-sounding names, and followed them to St. Louis, which is where they think they came to, and then to Kansas. Bender, you wouldn't think of that as a very German-sounding name. Goering, Friesen, Lockmiller, I think was a name that he followed. So he has taken this book and really followed it from a genealogical trail. He contends that the Benders, when they learned that they were being chased, they fled. And the last known whereabouts for sure was in Thayer at the train depot. Then they went north by train, and they may have busted up somewhere in Kansas City or St. Louis. But he's pretty sure he has followed the elder Mrs. Bender back to Germany. And he found the ship manifest that carried a name that was very similar to that. Found the Lutheran Church records there that had where that person went to. And she died in like 1880s or something there. And found the probate records, and it all matches up with old lady, old man, young lady, young man, son and daughter. And that's his contention. Now, where the others went is the story. Kate Bender, more than likely, went to Texas and got lost down there or killed. Texas was the Wild West. In the book by Susan, I don't even know how you say her last name, Jonassus, she's from England, that wrote the book, Hell's Half Acre. It, too, is a historical nonfiction/fiction book. She contends that Kate went to Texas and got killed. And that very well could have been a myth-buster moment here. There's this notion that there's this posse that chased the Benders.
Yes.
and that we all know that there was a posse. But we have it in our mind that somehow the Benders found out, and the call went out to the people in Cherryvale to form a posse. And they're galloping along the prairie, following the schooner with the Benders in it, and they chase them down and kill them. And that's not what happened at all. The timing is off. Dr. William York of Independence was missing. So his brother, Colonel York, who was an attorney in Independence, brought the sheriff of Montgomery County, J.E. Stone, with him to go to Fort Scott and retrace the steps. They first went to the Bender cabin, not thinking anything about it. They just want to say, hey, we're following this guy's trail. Do you know anything about it? And nothing came from there. But it rained for an entire week, and they couldn't travel. It was very muddy, rainy, end of April, early May. So they spent like 3 or 4 days in Fort Scott for the weather to clear up. Well, in that time, the Benders left and fled. So they had a whole week's time to get ahead of the posse that we all think chased them. And when Stone and York came back through on that trail and stopped at the Bender cabin on the way back is when they made the discovery. So it would have been 6 or 7 days later before they came back. That's a pretty far trip by horseback to Fort Scott and back. So yeah, the posse didn't chase them down and kill them. A posse may have chased down somebody and killed them. We don't know who they were. But that's the problem, is we just don't know. And this other problem is there are so many people over the course of time who claim that they were there when it happened. The room where it happened was somewhere in the prairie of Kansas, and everybody's great-grandfather was there to watch it. And I don't think that happened. I think they may have killed somebody. And they killed and said, oops, we may have killed the wrong people. Let's not tell anybody until we're about to die.
I think that's kind of the same information that we received
from the museum.
Yeah, exactly. So that's more than likely the case of what truly transpired.
So in the book by Camilla Bruce, they talked about sinkholes. Do we have sinkholes? Because I've never heard that.
No, I don't know that. It could have been. Sinkholes are a geological thing where the ground is unsettled underneath and it caves in. But we have a thick clay base around here that usually prevents sinkholes.
Right. I've never heard of one.
And a high rock level, too. I mean, if we had a sinkhole, it wouldn't be very deep before we hit sandstone.
So, Andy, in this book, Kate Bender, she is a medium and a murderer. And just in this book that we're discussing, do you think that she was supposed to be more manipulative, or was she kind of misunderstood because of that whole thing with her ma? or is she just something in between? What's your take on her?
At that time in this country, in the 1870s, mediums and psychic telling and those type of things, tarot card readings were very popular. This was post-Civil War, and there were a number of people who wanted to make sure that their loved ones who died in the war were somehow in a great beyond. So they often contacted these people that showed up out of nowhere, like mediums and fortune tellers or whatever, who preyed upon widows, mainly of Civil War slain soldiers, and would do these readings. So that was nothing unusual at that time. That was very, very popular, in fact. The manipulativeness, I don't know if people even knew about it. I mean, they would hear about Mrs. Bender having psychic readings. They probably didn't know much more than that. I won't say manipulative. I think she baited people into her house and somehow used either her beauty or her grace, I don't know what it would have been, to keep them there in enough time for the whole murder act to take place. The manipulativeness was the family itself. They all knew which positions to take, where they were going to be. And
Right.
that's where it bothers me when I read the story. This was just a dysfunctional, evil family. They all were in on it. All of them were.
Right. Yeah. Well, Andy, what do you think of this book? I mean, what type of rating would you give it?
Oh, I don't know about rating, because I'm the wrong guy to ask, because I don't read a lot of fiction. Let me put it this way. I'll put it on a grade level, put it in teacher parlance. I think from an approach perspective of making it interesting and making it compelling, it's probably an A-.
Okay.
Certainly for historical accuracy, probably a C-, maybe D+. It bends the truth, but I realize it's fiction.
Right.
And she uses a lot of artistic license to get away with that. But that's her thing. She likes the dark, evil, gothic stuff.
Yeah.
And that just depends on the reader. That's not me at all. That's not me at all. So,
Yeah. Kate reminded me of the movie Mr. Brooks. It's a movie with Kevin Costner. It's a psychological thriller that came out back in like 2007. And has anyone seen that? Does that ring a bell with any of you?
that's,
No.
I'm going to say, so I'm ignorant of that.
Oh, well, he plays, I think he's a professor or something, but he plays this seemingly normal, really good guy, but he has this disturbing dark side. And when I would read Kate's inner thoughts in the book, I just kept thinking about that movie, and both the characters, they had this itch to kill. And
Mhm.
so that's just,
And I'll tell you who I thought of. This will stick in your head for here on out when I tell you. When I saw the mother, all I could think of was Psycho.
Oh, yeah.
And when the weird, I can't remember the guy, Anthony Perkins played as Norman Bates. And he had this erotic, weird thing about his mother. And he'd take on her persona.
Very Bender-like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Killing people in the hotel and burying them out in the pasture. Yeah. And there was a lot of that darkness there. Yeah. I even thought about the movie Carrie. Do you remember that movie Carrie?
I do
from
remember the movie
1976?
Carrie.
That's like the scariest movie of our childhood was Carrie. And the mother, who was weird and had a weird fascination about her daughter.
Yes.
And the daughter was just trying to be normal, and she couldn't because she was ugly and kids made fun of her. But the mother, it's like, I'm thinking this manipulative mother, like the mom in Carrie, who controlled Carrie to a dysfunctional degree.
Yes. I can see a connection.
Yeah.
You're giving away our age bringing up those movies.
Yes, exactly. My mom and dad wouldn't let me see Carrie because it was rated R, and number 2, I was like 5. I saw it in later years.
Lasha's a sucker for a well-written book.
Sure.
yeah, and I didn't love this one. I didn't. I mean, obviously, we're working with characters who are supposed to be historical, real people, but
Mm-hmm.
like Hansen, I didn't think he was very well developed as far as a character in a novel, honestly. I thought there was a lot of repetition when she would explain Kate's inner thoughts, her really dark thoughts. I know that was to show that she was really troubled with it, but that, and then there were so many lines about Hansen with the rat in his stomach, and I just was like, oh, some of this was just like, it just, didn't hit the spot for me.
Well, Andy, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to come and be on our podcast. And man, you have just really went over and beyond with history. Thank you.
Give me a topic on history. I'll give you a whole 2-hour-long dissertation. I'll get the chalkboard out and everything. And
I love that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It was fun. It was fun. We can do this again sometime on some other historical
yes, please.
topic. Just you name it, I'll come and talk about it.
I'll tell you, next time you pick the book, we'll read it with you.
Okay.
And you can tell us all about it.
There you are. Okay. I'll do that.
And Lasha, thank you for, joining us on the phone.
Thank you, guys. So I guess until next time, I'm Lasha.
And I'm Lanie.
And I'm Tracy.
And I'm Andy.
And keep those bookmarks busy.